and upper body discomfort, shortness of breath, cold sweats, nausea, or lightheadedness, or stroke symptoms, such as balance issues, vision problems, face drooping, arm or leg weakness, or speech difficulty, please call 911 immediately. Our emergency department team is taking special precautions with all patients and created designated areas for the treatment of COVID-19 patients. To learn more about how Hackensack Meridian Health is providing you the best healthcare during this pandemic, visit hackensackmeridianhealth.org/getcarenow. Sponsored by Hackensack University Medical Center Foundation and aired by the New Jersey Broadcasters Association and this station.
Morris County needs our Spanish-speaking community to fill out the 2020 census. It's safe, it's easy, and it's really important. If we are not fully counted, communities in Morris County from all nationalities, races, and ethnic groups will lose federal aid. Less money for housing and child care programs. Less for schools and student lunches. Less for senior citizens. Less for community health care. Competition for federal dollars is fierce. So, if you live in Morris County, please fill out your census, online or on paper. No one will ask about citizenship, Social Security, bank accounts, or personal info. Help Morris County count in 2020. Do it now. Visit NJ Census 2020. This message sponsored by the County of Morris, the New Jersey Department of State Complete Count Commission, and aired in cooperation with the New Jersey Broadcasters Association and this station.
You're listening to WBWD 540 AM, Islip, New York, a part of Universal Stations, LLC.
The views, opinions, and statements expressed in the following program reflect the views of program contributors and do not necessarily reflect the views of WBWD Radio, its management, or its sponsors. For questions and comments, please send us an email at contact@bali540am.com or visit us at bali540am.com.
Sports Talk New York with your hosts, Mark Rosenman and AJ Carter. Sports Talk New York is sponsored in part by Prince Associates for all your insurance needs, the Phoenix Tube Company, the law firm of Declator Cohen and DePrisco, Solomon Jewelers, and General Needs Charity, serving our homeless veterans with dignity. And now, here are your hosts, Mark and AJ.
And good Sunday evening to everyone. Mark Roseman. No AJ Carter. Still, he's in his own bunker, I guess. I guess that's where he's hanging out. But, of course, Ryan and Mike Capice with you. Ryan Sherman and Mike Capice with you this Sunday evening. Hope everyone is doing well under these crazy times, crazy circumstances. We're here for an hour and a half to try and make you smile, try to make you forget about everything else that's going on in the world. And what we do each and every week is we start our show off with our Major League Baseball beat reporter. And it's time for the Capital Major League Baseball report. And with spring training, hard to believe that I started this back in March, this read, and it still holds up today. With spring training just around the corner, it means warm weather is right around the corner. Great to keep those windows and doors open. Let the fresh air in, keep the bugs out with a Clearview retractable screen. The Clearview retractable screen comes standard with a lifetime warranty and the patented speed reducer, so it won't snap back. You get the luxury of a screen door and a sleek, low-profile design without the hassle of bulky storm door or sliding screen doors. Call 631-440-1100 for free estimates and purchase a unit and mention Sports Talk New York and get it with free installation. That's 631-440-1100 or visit www.clearviewlongisland.com. Hey, Johnny, how you doing?
I'm doing good. You know, it took me 2 months to learn what pro rata means, and now the term is useless to me now.
So check this out, all right? We have the new rules and everything, but today we have 12 states where they're, easing back on the reopening. So I am still not 100% convinced that we're going to have baseball. So before we even get into the rule changes, do you think we're going to have baseball this year?
It's tough for me to say yes or no, because who knows what's going to happen in a month. Who knows if there's going to be more restrictions that will help or less restrictions that will hurt. It certainly seems dicey when you compare it to the Stanley Cup playoffs and the NBA playoffs, where you have the NBA is basically in Orlando. You've got the NHL in 2 hub cities to be determined, and everything's going to pretty much be self-contained. But baseball has the most challenges, especially if they insist on traveling to and from the home cities of the teams. I mean, consider this: the 4 states that have been identified as having the worst problems right now. You're talking California, Arizona, Texas, and Florida. That's a third of the league. That's 10 teams in those 4 states. And to me, I mean, I don't know why you can't have teams shift up north and play in the multitude of minor league parks that are abandoned right now with no baseball. I wonder if they're going to do that. I'm not prepared to say no, there's not going to be baseball, or yes, there's going to be baseball. They're sure as heck going to try it, but I definitely think they face the most challenges of the 3 sports that are resuming in late July, early August.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And with that, they've implemented, first of all, the schedule. All right, so the schedule is interesting. Basically, it's going to be 40 of their games are going to be scheduled against divisional opponents, 20 games against opponents from the corresponding regional division. So the Mets and the Yankees will be playing, and the Mets and the Red Sox, and the Mets will be playing all their games within their division. There's going to be a DH, which helps the Mets as well, which is going to be interesting to see how that plays out. And then extra innings. This is going to be interesting. What is your thought on the extra innings starting with a runner on second base?
I think it's hokey. I'm a purist, but I understand why you would do that this year. That said, I don't like having a runner on second with no outs. And the reason that is you're going to have 75% of these innings start out with a sacrifice bunt to third and at least 1 intentional walk, if not 2, to get a force at every base. So by my count in my noodle, you're going to have 50 to 75% of these innings morph into 1 out with the bases loaded. So to me, if you're going for speed at the end of these games, just start the innings with 1 out and the bases loaded. Think about innings that can start and end in 1 pitch. And then you've got a frantic back and forth, which I think would be kind of fun rather than have to sit through a sacrifice bunt or a failed attempt at a sacrifice bunt and 2 intentional walks. So if you're going to go in that direction this year, just go all the way and start the inning with 1 out and the bases loaded, and then you've got pinball the rest of the way.
Now, the other thing that is going to be of major interest to me, I was listening to the radio on the way over here, and they were saying how baseball is a sport that's going to, take the biggest hit because, you're going to have less reporters at the games, and you're going to get less of the interaction with the athlete after the game. And I'm thinking to myself, first of all, that's not true at all, because you go back to the 40s and 50s where you didn't have the huge media. We're going to get, not only are we going to get more, because every player has a Twitter account, and they're going to be using their social media for sure during this season, because, obviously they want to connect with the fans as well, because each one of these players are a brand unto themselves. So I don't think it's going to hurt the sport. In some respects, I think it might actually help. I think we're going to get back to the good old days where you just get game stories of what happened in the game, and you're not going to get all the byproducts of this guy trying to trump this guy with a story or a scoop. And I think maybe you're going to get a little bit of that purist for some of the old timers that really wanted to harken back to the day when the game was just pure and simple. And that's where you're going to get, I think. Ryan,
I think even the extra inning format could bring us back to a pure kind of thing of small ball, where the baseball has been going strikeout, walk, home run these past couple of years. This trend, they're trying to figure out what to do with the game. I don't think that long term I like the extra innings, but in this kind of season, it's going to bring in that that short game where, you have a guy advancing, that kind of stuff.
So what are your thoughts on that, John?
I think if nobody knows how to bunt, then I think those results are going to be disastrous. But I think in terms of the by-play after the game, listen, I've long thought that the reporter-player relationship kind of after the game has always kind of been forced, especially when you have players that have been really, in the last 20 years, they've gotten so much more coaching about what to say to the media, how not to make anybody mad, how not to, always compliment the opponent. Don't get yourself in any trouble. So I think a lot of it, especially, more so with the the stuff that we see, like a post game. You watch a Mets post game or a Yankees post game for a half an hour, and it's nothing you really don't already know. It's exactly. A lot of 99% of it is a lot of cliches and whatnot. I think the reporter player relationship is important. You do get some stuff, but a lot of it I think could be eliminated and nobody could miss it. So yeah, I think what you're saying with if the athletes go straight to Twitter, and more, you've got athletes going on Twitter and Instagram to have their thoughts. I think it could be a good thing. The one thing I do kind of also think is happening, that it's really becoming like social media, in terms of the players will interact, because Twitter came about where, you can interact with your favorite superstars, with your favorite athletes, but now you've got the athletes interacting with each other, and the fans just kind of are just kind of watching.
Right.
I think it's great for them to watch. I think it is kind of great for them to watch the byplay with each other. Even when Trevor Bauer argues with Aubrey Huff on social media, I think that's fun. And more of if it becomes more genuine and less forced, I think that's a great thing.
All right, Johnny, we'll speak to you next week. John Carpenter heard here each and every week over 540 AM Sports Talk New York. Quick break. On the other side, the one and only Jerry Mathers, so keep it tuned right here.
Decolator Cohen and DePrisco, LLP, is pleased to introduce their website, policeofficersrighttosue.com, as an educational and informative site designed to instruct members of the law enforcement community of their civil rights in line-of-duty accidents. Many law enforcement members are not aware of their rights to sue and fail to bring lawsuits within a specific time frame, thereby forfeiting their ability to seek rightful compensation against those parties that cause officers to be injured. PoliceofficersRightToSue.com provides successful past results of line-of-duty lawsuits. These examples range from officers being provided with inadequate equipment, RMD accidents, slip and falls, and station house mishaps. If any law enforcement member has a question regarding a potential lawsuit, they can contact DCD at policeofficersrighttosue.com or at 1-800-901-1LAW. That's policeofficersrighttosue.com or 1-800-901-1LAW.
And welcome back to 540 AM Sports Talk New York. Mark Roseman, Ryan Sherman, Mike Capice with you this Sunday evening. Joining us now is a man who began his career at the age of 2 years old when he appeared as a child model for a department store ad. Soon after that, he starred in a commercial for pet milk opposite legendary vaudeville actor Ed Wynn. His early movies included This Is My Love, Men of the Fighting Lady, The Seven Little Foys, and Alfred Hitchcock's black comedy, The Trouble with Harry in 1955. However, he is known to millions for his role in television sitcom Leave It to Beaver, originally broadcast from 1957 to 1963, in which he played Theodore Beaver Cleaver. You know what? I've said this for the last week since I booked this. I've interviewed Hall of Famers, athletes, Oscar winners, Tony winners. I don't think I've ever been more thrilled to welcome a guest to Sports Talk because it is my childhood. It is a pleasure and a thrill to welcome the one and only Jerry Mathers to Sports Talk New York. Welcome, Jerry.
Thank you very much, Mark. That was I don't know what to say. You definitely humbled me.
It's funny because during this pandemic, right before the pandemic started, my wife and myself, we picked up a puppy. And part of my morning ritual with the puppy is from 8 to 9 on MeTV watching Leave It to Beaver. So you have a fan in a sheepadoodle right now as well. So
that's funny because one of the things, and it was a cost thing, is the Cleavers never had for maybe one show. Like one show, I won an alligator at a carnival. But they could never have a pet because they didn't want to pay the extra money to have a trainer there with it. So you watch, the Cleavers never got to have a dog or a cat.
Yeah, but you did interact with Gus's dog at the firehouse for sure.
Very definitely.
So, I've done a lot of interviews over the years, but I don't think any of them, any of the people I interviewed started their careers at 2 years old. How did that first modeling job come about?
Well, I honestly don't remember it real well. I mean, I did a lot of that. My mom just happened to be walking through a department store, and she was looking for clothes for me. I was actually a little under 2, and I was kind of wandering around, and she didn't have her eyes exactly on me, and the lady came up to her and said, "Is that your son?" And she went, "Oh, no." She said, "What did he break? Whatever it was, did he wreck something? I'll pay for it." And the lady said, "No." but I've been watching you, been trying the clothes on him, and he fits all our clothes perfectly. And the little boy that was wearing these clothes, I guess it was 2 to whatever age, has outgrown them, and I was wondering if he could be a model. And my mom kind of went, oh, this is a big city. This is probably some kind of a catch. What's the catch? And the lady said, no, there's no catch, but, he could keep one of the outfits that he wore, and we would pay him. My mom said he could do that. So I started it on modeling. But what happened then was, at that time, live TV was just happening. In New York, they could go to the New York stage and get people that were used to working in front of an audience, because all the live TV shows had audiences. In California, everybody worked on, if it was TV, or they didn't really have movies, especially, have any audience. So they wanted a child that had worked in front of an audience, and I fit the bill. So I started working all the time. At 2 years old, on the Ed Wynn show, would walk out with a bottle, and they told me, and I met him, and he was a very nice man. They said, just start pulling out his coat and say it's time for a commercial. They'll tell you to go away. Just stay there. And then all of a sudden you go, okay, I'll do a commercial. And that's all I had to do. I started that. Once I did it right, I worked all the time.
It's amazing. You mentioned Ed Wynn, who is a huge name in the business, but you also work with Spike Jones and Bob Hope. Those are some really big names. What do you recall about working with those three, as well as the day that Bob Hope actually saved your life?
Well, Spike Jones is just a really nice guy. He was a musician and used to do a lot of stuff with all sorts of different instruments. I don't know how many he played, but he was always fooling around, and we would, sing little songs and things like that. So that was a lot of fun. And what was the other one you wanted? What?
Bob Hope. The day he actually saved your life.
Right, he saved my life. I worked with him 2 times, but the one time he saved my life, I was in a show called, it was about the 7 Little Boys. And it was called The 7 Little Boys, and it was about a vaudevillian. And one of the things he was famous for, they had a big fire at I think it was the Iroquois Theater in Chicago in real life, and he had saved everybody in the theater, because at that time, because of the candles to light the stages, they had a lot of fires, and a lot of times, if they did, people would be trampled as they tried to escape the theater. And he got up and said, nobody runs out on Eddie Foy, and danced, and everybody got out safe. Well, when we went to shoot that scene, I was supposed to be sitting up in a kind of a balcony right off the stage, and then they were going to put in a stunt double, but the very first time we did it, they put too much gasoline on the curtains. It started the fire, but the stunt double couldn't get to him because of where he had been placed, and the only person that knew that he wasn't going up there was Bob Hope, because he knew he was standing there. He had a funny jacket on that he was supposed to be wearing, and he knew that the guy hadn't gotten it from him, so he came up through the flames and rescued me. We had to do it again the next day, but everything went fine that time.
It's an unbelievable story. You're also in an Alfred Hitchcock film, The Trouble with Harry, and people who are Hitchcock aficionados might recall The Trouble with Harry. It was one of his most experimental, subversive, and uncompromisingly strange black comedy about people in a small town who can't decide what to do with a dead body. It actually was unavailable for about 30 years, other than one showing on NBC Saturday night at the movies in the early 60s. It was finally reissued in 1984. It's also a movie where there was an accident on set where a huge camera came down. The camera weighed about 850 pounds and actually, hit Alfred Hitchcock and pinned another member of the cast on the ground. What do you remember about working with Alfred Hitchcock in a Hitchcock movie? That had to be something. I mean, you were so young, but looking back on your career, having worked in a Hitchcock movie, what was that like for you?
Well, it was a very different experience. And what I mean by that is, we went to Stowe, Vermont to film for about, I think it was 6 weeks. So when you're on a studio set, especially if you're a child, you don't really get to meet the people very well. But because we were a movie company, we would be going to lunch together, because the ladies there would make these fabulous lunches, and everyone wanted to see, as we went through like a buffet line, which one Mr. Hitchcock, who was a foodie for sure, would pick to eat. And I was, a little kid, and I could run. Everybody else was, I think, a little afraid of him, but I'd run right behind him. And if he picked this kind of food, or he picked that or this, I'd say, is that the one? He'd go, oh, yes, Jerry. That'd be the one we should pick today. And so I got the best food ever. And I also got the best blueberry muffins that you can imagine, because those ladies, that was the big thing. It was blueberry season, and they were all making blueberry muffins. And whatever one he picked was the one that you should have that day.
So tell us about the audition process for Leave It to Beaver and how the Cub Scouts actually played a vital role in you getting the part of Theodore Cleaver.
Well, the interview itself had about 2,000 people, I think, in New York, but it wasn't just for the Beaver. It was Wally, Eddie, all the different cast members, all the children that were going to be, or not any of the adults. And so it went on and on and on. They didn't find anybody in Los Angeles. It was, what they call a cattle call. We went back and back and back, and we were I was getting a little tired of it, because usually you went maybe once or twice. And I just joined the Cub Scouts, and my mom said, "Okay, Jerry, we got called back for that big movie, the TV series." And I went, "Oh, Mom, I can't go." And she said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, I've got my Cub Scout meeting today, so I'll have to go to that instead." She said, "Well, we've been going to this thing for quite a while. We've gone probably, I think it was even like several weeks, so it's not every day. And they got it down to the last few kids." So I went, and when I got in there, they could see Conley and Mosier, who were the producers of the show, saw that I was, not agitated, but I was really antsy. They said, "What's wrong, Jerry?" And I said, "Well, I really don't want to be here. I'm going to be late for my Cub Scout meeting, and I hate to be late to anything." They said, "Okay, you can go." So I walked right in and walked right out. My mom said, and the other kids that had gone before me had been in there, 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes. My mom said, "What happened?" And I said, "Well, they asked me if I wanted to be there." I said, "No." So they said I could leave. My mom went, "Jerry, we've spent a lot of time here. That probably wasn't the best thing." But I said, "Yeah, but I need to go to my Cub Scout meeting." So I went. They called that night, said I had the job because they'd rather have a little guy that wanted to go to a Cub Scout meeting than be an actor. So that's actually how I won the job.
It's unbelievable. So you mentioned Conley and Moser, which is Leave It to Beaver was their creation. They also had a series called Ichabod and Me, which was earlier than Leave It to Beaver, and your brother Jimmy was in that. How much do you think the familiarity with your family also played into the fact of you getting the role?
Oh, very definitely. But, he would come every once in a while, like during the summers and stuff, just to see me, working. It wasn't the big thing. It was just kind of a treat for him. And, my dad, who was a vice principal, he retired as superintendent, but was a vice principal of schools at the time, would bring him during the summer sometime, and he'd watch me work. And he also did several movies. He did one series called Ichabod and Me, but it only ran for about a year. But, I came from a family where there was a couple of working actors, and it was just, it was a fun time, and everything worked out great.
It's interesting. Well, before I go to that, have you and your brother ever appeared in anything together?
I don't think so. I mean, we've, a lot of times he runs something called the Digital Cinema Society, which is a thing for cameramen, because that's what he does now. He's a camera operator. He's also a producer and does movies, but he does the Digital Cinema Society. So, but we were always very close. I also have a sister, Susie, and then two other brothers, but my other two brothers are both sheriffs. So we didn't follow in theirs. They didn't follow in my path, and I didn't follow in theirs.
I found it interesting that I couldn't find any roles where you guys were both in the same movie or TV show. So the pilot for Leave It to Beaver was called It's a Small World. It had Barbara Billingsley as your mom. It had Casey Adams as your dad, Paul Sullivan as Wally. Both Adams and Sullivan were replaced when the show was picked up as a series. And I don't know if it's just me and all the years of watching the show, but I actually went back and I watched the pilot. And for me, the chemistry just was not the same. How vital do you think Tony and you were to the ultimate success of the show?
Oh, I think they were very, very, they were very good characters. I always thought Hugh Beaumont was an excellent choice. He was an actor before. He did a lot. He didn't do a series, but he did a lot of movies. But what he really was a Methodist minister. And to be able to support his congregation, which was down in the worst part of LA, and it was basically people that were pretty much living on the streets there. He became an actor because he could work, go down and do his ministry, and kind of work part-time. And when he did Leave It to Beaver, he didn't have quite as much time. but he was just a wonderful man. And he, I think when he talked to me and when I'd done something wrong on the show, it's kind of like, that minister in him came out. Barbara Billingsley was just the most beautiful person you'd ever want to meet. She was a very, very, one of the high people in New York as a model. She was a New York model and moved out here because her husband, who was a doctor, came out here and then started doing TV and movies. And so that's how we got her. And it was just, everybody on the set was just nice. And I had a wonderful time and everybody else did.
It's interesting you mentioned Barbara Billingsley, because if you watch the pilot, her character really evolved from that pilot to what she was actually in the series. And people, kind of, lampoon the fact that this was this woman who was always in pearls and a dress cleaning the house. But if you go back and watch it, she might not have been the prototypical housewife of the 50s, because you listen to the show and she is much deeper than that. She talks about her college education, and she was pretty progressive for the times. When you go back and watch that, does your recollection of the show change at all?
Not for me. I think the funniest part was one of the things they really complain about is when she's doing all the housework, a lot of times she's wearing high heels. But the reason for that is not that she was so, trying to be so fancy, was that Tony Dow and myself, as we got bigger than her. And so they put her in these really high heels so we would still look like smaller boys.
It's so cool when you go back and watch the pilot, because television, the way it evolves, you had Richard Deacon playing a different role. Later on, he was playing Mr. Baxter, and later on, obviously, he'd go to play Fred Rutherford. And Harry Shearer is actually in the pilot. He plays a character which is the precursor to Eddie Haskell. So it's really cool if you go back and watch the pilot just for history's sake. The show's situations were based really on an experience of the writer's children. Joe Connolly based Beaver and Wally on his own sons, Eddie and Larry. And Eddie and Larry were based on their friends. Connolly would take the boys out and record their conversations in his notebook, and a lot of that would end up as dialogue in the show. Did you ever meet his sons?
Oh, very definitely. They honestly, I lived a long way away from them, and when I was working pretty much from 9 till 6 or 8 to 5 days a week, and on the weekends we, would do PR and different things like that. So I knew them. They would come to the rap parties and things like that. When all the crews brought their kids, and a lot of times their wives and everybody. But I knew him. He wasn't by any means. He didn't go to school with me, so he wasn't my best friend. But he was a very nice guy. But he was who the character was kind of based on. No kid could get in that much trouble. They did a lot of scouring of all sorts of different people to find out all things that kids did, and then they'd write it into the script.
I think for my generation, Leave It to Beaver really was our childhood. The Cleaver home was pretty much portrayed as a sanctuary, a home of moral values in which love, mutual respect, and dignity were the foundation that the house was built on. But outside of the home, Beaver's friends were a combination of Charles Dickens and Mark Twain characters, always luring you into trouble, but Ward and June provided the moral compass and always saw lessons to be learned from every misadventure. Many sitcoms had similar plots, but none seemed to hold up as much as Leave It to Beaver when you watch it. Why do you think all these years later the show still stands up?
Well, I think there's a couple of reasons. One of them that I would say right off the bat is they're all from real life. Now, I'm not saying that those exact things happen to, a kid, but the writers had a lot of kids between them, and they took them from their kids or things that other parents told them, things my mom or Tony's mom said we had done or somebody did. So they're real things. When you watch a lot of sitcoms, it's, jokes and then people making up these wild stories that would never happen to a kid. They're all in their seed. Every one of the Leave It to Beaver episodes was something that kids did then and they still do today.
With everything we see on TV these days, people might find it hard to believe, but Leave It to Beaver actually set some precedents for the television industry. What was supposed to be the very first episode of Leave It to Beaver, Wally and Beaver set out to buy a pet alligator, it actually got pushed back a week because of where you were going to keep the alligator. Can you tell us a little bit about how Leave It to Beaver was groundbreaking in that sense?
Well, I think it was a lot more than a week, because what happened was at that time, you weren't allowed to show bathrooms. And when we won an alligator at a fair because Warden June had told Wally the beaver they couldn't keep a pet because they wouldn't be able to take care of it, and they'd end up taking care of it, which happens a lot of times when kids get pets. But we win it at the fair and we sneak it home, but it's an alligator, so we kept it in the toilet. And so it was something that had never happened before on television, especially for a family sitcom, because they didn't show bathrooms. I mean, it was pretty much a no-no. And when they had censors at that time that read all of the shows, and when they saw that, they said, absolutely not. No, you can't keep, even though they didn't even show the bowl, they just showed the top of the toilet. They said, no, but they finally got around them, and they just shot the show, and it played. So it's the first time a bathroom was ever portrayed in a television series.
Unbelievable.
Can you describe a little bit of what it was like to be part of that movie and TV magic at such an early age in your life when it was really still so new?
Well, movies weren't that new, but television very definitely was. But, it's like anything else you do as a child. I had started on live TV at 2 years old. I was on the Ed Wynn Show every week. I did commercials. So things like that, it was nothing out of the ordinary for me. It was something I was very, very used to. People would tell you what to do. My mom would go over the lines with me. It was just something that I knew other kids didn't do it. I knew I was very lucky to be doing it, but it wasn't out of the ordinary for me. When I started Leave the Beaver for 6 years, I mean, it was a great cast and a better crew. They made sure most of the crew members had families and kids at home. So it was a very, very fun time for me.
We mentioned it being groundbreaking in the respects about the bathroom, but, there was such a big deal made and the buzz around Seinfeld that Kramer's first name wasn't revealed until episode 97. However, it took 234 episodes for us to find out how Beaver got his nickname. Do you recall why Theodore actually became Beaver?
Oh, they had people writing them all the time wanting to know that when they were doing the show. And I don't know how they came up with this name, but they didn't really have a good reason. So in the end, the very last show, they came up with the idea that I couldn't say Theodore. Of course, Teddy I could have probably said. And I said like Tweeter, and they thought that sounded like Theodore, but Beaver sounded more like it. That was what they wrote, so that's what we said, but it seemed pretty ridiculous to me.
So as the show evolved, you had many shows, many friends, Larry Mandello, Gilbert Bates, Richard Rickover, and Whitey Whitney. Was there any relationship in the series that you liked more than others, and why?
Well, the one I got along the best with was Richard Rickover. He was kind of interesting because he was on the show, but the reason he got the part, not that he wasn't a great actor, is the writers of Leave It to Beaver, the original where they started as writers was on Amos and Andy. And he was Charles Corrales, who was one of the writers, one of the people on the show, on the radio show's son. So he and I became very, very good friends. But, I didn't see a lot of those people. People think, just because they were on the show, they might only be there for one day for the schoolroom scene, and it might be 3 or 4 weeks before they'd ever come back. So, I had a private tutor because I was in elementary school and Tony was in high school. He had a separate teacher. So, it was a very different life than going to school every day. And I was working 8 to 5 or 9 to 6, 39 weeks, and then we do PR and take a few weeks off and go back and start again for 6 years.
I think Gilbert might have been the one that got you in the most trouble. I think back of the episode, the class photo and the cup of coffee in the ad, and the one with Rick over. My favorite one is the jacket one. But there's just so many of those episodes with your friends that are just phenomenal. Wally had lots of friends as well. Lumpy Rutherford, Eddie Haskell were the two of the best knowns. We lost Frank Bank, who played Lumpy, it's hard to believe, over 7 years ago, and Ken Osmond last month. I've heard you say in interviews that Ken Osmond was probably the best actor on the show because he was quite unlike his on-screen character. Were you two good friends, and what can you tell us about Ken?
He was a lifelong friend, well, not lifelong, but that's, since I was, 7 years old. Great man. Just, as much as he was Eddie Haskell, he was absolutely 100% different as Ken Osborne. He was a decorated LA police officer, worked in the worst part of downtown Los Angeles, shot twice in the line of duty, and went back both times and then retired. And he was just, the nicest person, loved motorcycles. He started out as a motorcycle cop. So, every once in a while, not very often, my mom was always praying for me with those rosary beads when I do it, but every once in a while he'd take me for just a little spin around the studio at about 20 miles an hour on his motorcycle, because that's what he drove to work every day. But just a really nice guy and would absolutely do anything for you, very handy. And if something would break at my house, I'd ask him when I did the new Leave It to Beaver and we were adults, how do I fix this? And he'd go, what's wrong? I'd tell it to him. The next day he'd show up at my house with all the parts and say, well, you couldn't do this. I'm going to help you and show you. He wouldn't do it, but he'd show me how to do it. Just the nicest person you'd ever want to meet.
It's such an iconic character as well. So after 234 episodes, the initial run of Leave It to Beaver ends. Do you remember what the feeling of that last episode was, filming it, knowing that, this was coming to an end?
It's probably like people that were going to school and you went from elementary school to high school. But we knew that we would be like a whole group of us going to the same high school. It was like, maybe a private school where everybody went to a different school. But, we were all very good friends. We'd been there for 6 years, for basically 39 weeks, and it wasn't just the people on the show, it was the crew. It was just a lot of friends that suddenly and every year we didn't know if it'd be our last year. So every year when we left, we felt that, that might be the last one. We kept getting called back. We were hoping on the 6th year we would, but it just didn't happen. And we all went our separate ways. We all remained friends. But, it's just like probably leaving high school or college where you've got a lot of friends and then you leave.
It's interesting also, the popularity of the show, but someone in your family had the foresight to make sure you were the first child actor to get a percentage of the merchandising revenue from a television show. What was the biggest Leave It to Beaver item that sold back in the day? And are you surprised that the show still generates merchandise revenue today, many, many years after its original production run?
No, because it's never been off the air, and it doesn't even show here. It shows in all these different countries all over the world. The merchandising, was just books and hats and T-shirts and just, things that Wally and the Beaver wore. Now, the T-shirts have, some of them have Tony's picture and some of them have mine, but, it's just a lot of different things like that. And also the merchandising included if we got any commercials, because a lot of times different sponsors of the show or people that didn't even sponsor the show would want us to do ads and things like that. So, it was a great time. It was something that we did it for 6 years, and I had the best time of my life. I really missed it when I left it, but, I moved on and went to, on to other things. But it was a very, very good time and just a lot of friends. It's like leaving, elementary school and you go out into a different college where you don't see all the people that you knew every day for that many years.
After you mentioned it, went on to do some other roles, and you had some roles in some pretty iconic shows as well. Lassie, Batman, My Three Sons. How difficult was it initially, right after that Leave It to Beaver run, to get cast? Obviously you're known to the whole world as Theodore Cleaver. How difficult was it getting those new roles?
Honestly, it wasn't that difficult, but the reason was I really didn't go out for a lot of those roles, because what I did was go to high school. Now, I had never been in school with any other kids. I'd had a private tutor since I was in the first grade with Leave It to Beaver. And so I went on to high school. I played sports. I was on the football team and the track team. And, people knew the show, kids around me, but there was, other people that had parents or had been actors. So it was just, it was something that was fun. It was like a big jump to go to high school, though. So, but a lot of people, when they went from elementary school to high school, it was probably just as big a jump for them. It was a little bit more for me because I'd never been in class with other kids. But it was just something that, I knew it would come to an end. It did, and I moved on.
No, it's also interesting. We mentioned about all these groundbreaking things that you guys actually did. Another one is, we see it just recently, the Karate Kid now has taken the Karate Kid story, fast forward it, 30 years forward, and all the same people are in the Cobra Kai series. So it's 30 years in the future. You guys did that with the new Leave It to Beaver. So what was that like, reprising your roles as adults, together with mostly everyone with the exception of you? Meaning you, Beaumont, not you.
Beaumont, right. No, it was just really fun because we did get a lot of even the crew members back. And, so it would be like, your first day of elementary school, and then, 20 years later you come back and you see all your friends again. And, we did the new Leave to Beaver, and we did that for quite a few years. There's, I think, about 100 episodes of that. And it was just really fun, and it was interesting to be able to move up and play the Hugh Beaumont or the Ward part. And, we got new kids, and they were just as mischievous as the Beaver. So it was really fun to be able to see. It was like a reunion, and it went on for 6 years. So, it was fun to be around people that I'd known as a child, and now I had moved into a different realm because I was an adult, but it was still fun to work like that.
So you, Beaumont, directed several episodes of Leave It to Beaver. You get to direct some of the episodes of the new Leave It to Beaver, including Family Scrapbook 2, which was an homage to the Family Scrapbook finale of the original Leave It to Beaver series in 1963. I have to imagine that all of that is one of those unbelievable full circle moments. So first of all, walk me through the range of emotions of doing that. And secondly, during that, at any point when you were directing, do you hear Hugh Beaumont's voice in your head as well, the way he would have done it?
Well, very definitely, because he worked out on Leave It to Beaver as a father, but he directed some of the original Leave It to Beavers. So you always I always did watch the directors and, learn certain things. And so for me to be able to go on and direct, I was in the catbird seat because I knew the different kinds of shots, that there were 2 shots over the shoulders, this, that, and the other, and what the coverage would be. Now, we shot every episode in 1 week. We rehearsed on Monday and just read the script Tuesday. We blocked it. The next 3 days, we shot it. But that was a lot to shoot in 3 days, especially. And in the new Leave, when I directed, we were working with kids. Kids can only work 8 to 5 or 9 to 6. So you have to, a lot of times, and it's very tough on the adults, which I learned when we did the new Leave to Beaver, they wouldn't do their close-ups, and they'd be in different rooms and things, and they might be there till 9 or 10 o'clock because they had to move everything back and then do a couple of close-ups on them, which would have taken, 20 or 30 minutes if we'd have done them, and they hadn't had the time restraints of knowing that we were leaving at 6 o'clock, because those welfare workers walked right on. They were also our teachers and said, sorry, it's 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock. They're going home, even if we're in the middle of a scene and they'd had it all lit.
Yeah, I know the one where you ran away and they wanted it to be dark. When you ran away, you had to push back the start of shooting that day. So a lot of different rules back in the day for sure. So we also have a chat room that goes along with the show while we're live. And someone just wanted to know, what was it like being on the dating game?
Oh, that was fun. I mean, it was, it was a big show at the time. I was single. The only, I must admit, it was kind of a bad thing. It wasn't bad, but it was, the girl turned out to be, she looked very sophisticated, but she was only 16 years old.
Oh, no.
And she had told them that, she was, I think, 21 or 18. I forget what it was. So, they had to send 2 different chaperones with us, one that had to be with her the whole time, because once it had aired, because of some kind of rules they had to send her. But so it was a very different day, I understand, that a lot of the people had, because, I was quite a bit older. I was, I think, 18 at the time. So it wasn't exactly the kind of date I expected. She was very nice. She lived she lived in the LA area, but a long way away from me. So I never really, ever took her out after she called. I called her every once in a while, wished her a Merry Christmas or on her birthday for a couple of years. But it was a lot of fun. I mean, I got to see Europe, and because I was over 18 at the time, took another month and went all through not only England for 2 weeks with them, but the rest of the month I went all over Europe by myself, which was a lot of fun.
So, for each of us have our own favorite Leave It to Beaver episodes. Do you have a particular one that is your favorite?
Not just one. There's just so many, but I'll tell you why. Some of them there were different people on, the teachers, the different characters, Gus the fireman, and all these different people. And when I see one of those, it brings back good memories. We had all the animals that we had on. I can remember all the different stories of things getting away, and we had one where we had exotic cats. Beaver finds a cat. Well, they got these cats that were show cats, and they weren't used to being around people, and one of them got away, and they had to shut the stage for 2 days until they could find it. They were very, not afraid, but there were, a lot of mice and things at the studio there, and this guy who owned it was so afraid that his cat might have to have a rat or, get in a fight with a mouse. I'm thinking it's a cat. But, this was a show cat.
Well, so you had mules. Yeah, you had everything on that show for sure. Where right now, people can still get Leave It to Beaver merchandise at your website, correct?
Right. Very definitely so. It's Jerry Mathers, Beaver, merchandise.com, merch, merch.com. I have T-shirts, printed out, which has a printed autograph on it, green hats with my embroidered signature, a pin that says Beaver for President. I don't know if I'd want to be president or not, but it has my picture on it, and a hat that's Beaver for President. So just a lot of kind of fun things that, if people would want to get one, especially the T-shirts, they're fun to wear to the beach or whatever. So, it's been a great run and a lot of fun, and people are always saying, I wish I had something from the show. Well, there's really not anything, They say, well, did you keep your lunchbox? Did you keep this? No, those are all props. But this is just something that people can have. And the hat is the exact same color. Most people don't know this because it was in black and white, but the hat was really green. So the hat is exactly like the hat I wore on Leave It to Beaver, except it has my name, Jerry Mathers, and the beaver under it. And so it's just a lot of fun, and it gives people, and they come up a lot of times when I do autograph shows, they've already got it from the website, and they'll come up and I'll sign it for them. It's already signed, but I'll sign it for them again.
Yeah, I have to tell you, during this pandemic, we also, during the week, we did a show with a memorabilia store here in New York, and we also toured different people's, collections. And there's one collector up in upstate New York actually has something that I was dying for. He's actually got a Jerry Mathers, Tony Dow autographed baseball. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. I said, that's the one thing, I need to somehow get in my collection. But I just want to thank you so much for your time tonight. And more importantly, thanks for what you and the show meant to my childhood. And like I said, and what it brings now, it really is comforting when I watch it in the morning, and it just brings me back to a simpler time and maybe a better time. I think the values that show instills, and it still works today. If I can only, my kids are adults, but they won't watch anything in black and white, but the stories and even, teachable moments in that show, I don't think we have shows like that anymore. And I think maybe if we did, we'd probably be in a little better and kinder spot than we are today. But I just want to thank you for what you meant for my childhood individually.
Well, you know what? I had more fun doing it than you had watching it. So it was just a treat, and I made friends all around the world. Leave It to Beaver plays in about 60 languages, so I get people that come up and start speaking to me in a foreign language, and I say, I'm sorry, I don't speak whatever you're speaking. My name was Doug. But it's just a great way to meet people, and it was a fun time. It was something that I'm very proud of, and it just couldn't have worked out better for me.
Jerry, thanks so much, and we hope people head to the merch website and pick up some Leave It to Beaver merchandise. Thanks so much.
Oh, my pleasure, Mark. Thank you.
You got it. Jerry Mathers as the Beaver. We'll take a quick break. On the other side, we'll talk NHL hockey.
Since 1952, Solomon's Jewelers has been the name to trust on Long Island for jewelry. Solomon's Jewelers is a 60-year-old family-owned business run by jewelry professionals and Gemological Institute of America graduates. 3 generations of experience let them offer you certified appraisals. They have a highly skilled design, repair, and watchmaker staff on premises for all your restyling needs. Solomon Jewelers offers a wide variety of magnificent designer couture jewelry, name brand watches, and certified diamonds. Solomon Jewelers pride themselves on having the best customer service and support in the jewelry industry. They're there with 60 years of experience behind them to help educate and guide you through every step of your jewelry purchase. Solomon Jewelers has 2 convenient locations to serve Long Island's jewelry needs. 74 Minetto Hill Plaza, Plainview, New York, or 1030 Willis Avenue, Albertson, New York. Visit them on the web at www.solomonjewelers.com. Solomon Jewelers, serving Long Island since 1952.
Since 1964, Prince Associates' commitment has been to provide customers with the best insurance value and service available while maintaining the highest ethical standards and credibility with their clients, carriers, and the public. Prince Associates Incorporated is an independent insurance agency with a broad range of commercial, personal, life, and health products. Prince Associates has aligned themselves with some of the finest carriers to deliver these products to you. So whether you're a business or an individual, Prince Associates can help. Please visit them on the web at princein's.com for an online quote, or call them at 516-822-6550. Tell them Mark and AJ sent you. Prince Associates, meeting your every insurance need since 1964.
And welcome back to 540 AM Sports Talk New York. Mark Roseman, Ryan Sherman, Mike Capice with you this Sunday evening. If you just tuned in, you missed an outstanding 30-some-odd minutes with Jerry Mathers, obviously Jerry Mathers as the Beaver. But don't fret also, because coming up at the top of the hour, we have Wally Cleaver. Tony Dow will be joining us at 8 o'clock. But right now, it's time for the NHL Report with Russ Cohn, sponsored by our friends over at Soho Table Hockey. What's table hockey, you say? Some of us might have grown up with rod hockey or bubble hockey or even air hockey tables. Soho Table Hockey has embraced the nostalgia of those old tabletop games and designed a whole new board for the future. Handcrafted with designer wood, state-of-the-art playing surface, unbendable rods, the energy-absorbing walls, this is a table hockey game that players age 8 to 80 can enjoy. Even better, the exceptional quality and design allows the game to stand up to the intensity of tournaments, which is why Soho Table Hockey is the #1 choice of championship players throughout North America. Visit Soho Table Hockey to learn more and start your order on a custom game. You can choose your own wood, a center ice logo, and even the team matchups. Go ahead, drop the puck. You'll love Soho Table Hockey so much you won't be able to stop playing. Right now, we're actually waiting for them to start playing. But in the interim, we got some news as far as the draft. So it's interesting. And Mike just asked me the question, do you think maybe this was fixed? Because now the phase 2 is going to be interesting because the #1 pick is still up for grabs, meaning teams that get eliminated in that play-in round could walk away with a first-round pick. So you could have the bonus of getting an additional semi-round of playoffs, which is not real playoffs, it's play-in, and then come away with the first-round pick. What are your feelings on the way the draft was set up?
Well, I don't think it's fixed simply because of the bad press that they took. I mean, they took a pretty good ribbing, and, you know, we had all been setting up for it, saying, hey, this could happen, and it happened. I mean, they could have had 3 come up, but, you know, the odds probably weren't going to happen that 3 were. But, you know, I had talked about what if the top one did. And so it's one of those things where you've got now 7 teams that are not happy with the league. You have certainly Detroit not happy coming in 4th. And I talked about that a bunch of times because I just said, wow, what if they come in 4th? And, you know, they didn't really put in a heavy tank. They just didn't try and get better. But at the beginning of the year, they were trying. It's just, you know, they're a lousy team and they got worse. I got to look at it and say, those teams are not happy. Yes, it could be an unprecedented thing where you have a sort of a playoff team, maybe getting a chance at the top pick. But yeah, I don't think it was fixed, but they do get another kick at the can at this. But still, I don't think that's what the NHL wanted, honestly.
But can you imagine if the Rangers somehow walk away with that pick, or Carolina?
Yeah, I mean, the Rangers have never had the first overall pick. If for some reason they get it this way, it would be weird. Now, Carolina is a weird situation because if they beat the Rangers, but the Leafs lose, they're not going to get the Leafs pick because the Leafs are going to use their pick, and then the Leafs are going to send the 2021 pick to Carolina, so then they wouldn't have a shot at it. So there's a few conditions like that get things a little crazy too. Rangers have their own thing where, they can get Carolinas first, but, that has to all work out too.
All right, so baseball is still having issues, mainly because we have all these surges in 12 states that are probably scaling back their reopening. NHL still has not finalized the bubble cities. With all these cases on the rise, do you think there's still a jeopardy of the NHL season not being resumed?
I mean, there's a jeopardy of every league not happening, but I don't think any of them believe that that's going to happen. And in my heart, I don't believe it's going to happen, but I do believe it's possible. I've seen some case rises in Vegas, but nothing that would say you can't hold it there. 500 a day is not like 6,000 a day like it is in South Florida. So I think you still can go Vegas and Toronto. I think those are going to be the main ones. I think they'll have some backup cities like Edmonton and such, but the players don't really want to go to Edmonton because it's kind of boring, and they want to at least be able to have a good time when they're not playing. I know that sounds trite and whatever, but if they're going to be, locked away for a few months, that's one of their mandates. So I think you have that to deal with. Vancouver, probably not getting it now based on what the premier doctor said there, and I don't blame her. If she doesn't think it's right for their population, then it's bad. But I think it's going to come out tomorrow, actually.
All right, Russ, we will speak to you next week, hopefully with things a little more clearer and where camps are opening up, who's in camp, and what these rosters will look like. Russ Cohn here each and every week with the Soho Table Hockey NHL report. Like I said, if you missed the first hour of the show, you missed Jerry Mathers, but don't fret, because up next will be Tony Dow after these messages.
The views, opinions, and statements expressed in the preceding program reflect the views of program contributors and do not necessarily reflect the views of WBWD Radio, its management, or its sponsors. For questions and comments, please send us an email at contact@bali540am.com or visit us at bali540am.com.
Hello, this is Bob Garrett, CEO of Hackensack Meridian Health. Through its devastating spread, COVID-19 has touched all of us, leaving an impact on every facet of our lives. I'm so proud of the way Hackensack Meridian Health has mobilized to fight this outbreak. Our team members on the front lines fight tenaciously every day for the health of our patients and community. For us, this fight is personal. We are not only treating your families, but our own families as well. And while many things about COVID-19 remain uncertain, I am certain that together we will win this battle. If you can, please help our patients, our healthcare heroes, and our researchers by making a donation to our COVID-19 response fund. You can learn more at hackensackmeridianhealth.org/COVID-19. Sponsored by the Hackensack University Medical Center Foundation and aired by the New Jersey Broadcasters Association and this station.
Is a friend or loved one's gambling problem affecting your life emotionally, spiritually, or financially? Do you yourself take a toll on the people around you due to a gambling issue? Have the conversation. Visit 800gambler.org for access to a new video on the family, various programs, services, and resources for disordered gamblers, their friends, and or loved ones. At 800-GAMBLER, we offer support, treatment, and hope. We're just a phone call or click away. This message is sponsored by the Council on Compulsive Gambling in New Jersey, the New Jersey Broadcasters Association, and this station.
Cap off a weekend of watching sports by talking about it with Mark Rosenman and AJ Carter on Sports Talk New York. All the intelligent conversation, insightful interviews, and reporters covering every story is right here on 540 AM from 7 to 8:30 Sunday nights. Check out sportstalknylive.com for previews of upcoming guests and visit their Facebook page for a chance to win prizes. Sports Talk New York, Sunday nights from 7 to 8:30 on 540 AM.
Morris County needs everyone, and especially our Spanish-speaking community, to fill out the 2020 census. It's safe, it's easy, and it's really important. If we are not fully counted, communities in Morris County from all nationalities, races, and ethnic groups will lose federal aid. Less money for housing and childcare programs, less for schools and student lunches, less for senior citizens, less for community health care. Competition for federal dollars is fierce. So if you live in Morris County, please fill out your census online or on paper. No one will ask about citizenship, Social Security, bank accounts, or personal info. Help Morris County count in 2020. Do it now. Visit NJ Census 2020. This message sponsored by the County of Morris, the New Jersey Department of State Complete Count Commission, and aired in cooperation with the New Jersey Broadcasters Association and this station.
In the wake of the coronavirus, many schools and colleges are utilizing distance learning. While distance learning may be the best way to keep students and school staff safe, students and educators alike will surely miss the personal interactions and social opportunities that take place in regular school settings. Here are some ways to make the most of distance learning. First of all, stay on a schedule. It's easy to put things off when you work from home. Get up, get dressed, and keep regular lunch breaks. Make time for online and social interactions. Students can create study groups that can meet online to review lessons and ask questions. Get up and move. Take a break every hour to take a walk around the house. Drink some water and wash your hands. Stay alert and practice healthy habits. Eat dinner as a family. Talk about what you learned each day. Keep a regular sleep schedule. It's easy to get off track and stay up late watching television or playing video games when you don't have to leave the house. Remember, it's still a school day. This message is sponsored by the New Jersey Education Association, the New Jersey Broadcasters Association, and this station.
You're listening to WBWD 540 AM, Islip, New York, a part of Universal Stations, LLC.
The views, opinions, and statements expressed in the following program reflect the views of program contributors and do not necessarily reflect the views of WBWD Radio, its management, or its sponsors. For questions and comments, please send us an email at contact@bali540am.com or visit us at bali540am.com.
Hi, I'm Howie Rose, and you're listening to Mark and AJ on 540 Sports Talk New York.
The third baseman, number 11, Mark Rosenman.
And welcome back to 540 AM Sports Talk New York. Mark Roseman, Ryan Sherman, Mike Capice with you this Sunday evening. Special night for me for sure. If you missed the first hour, you missed Jerry Mathers. And joining us now is a man who's done it all, as he was a junior Olympics diving champion, a film producer, a director, and a television actor. He is best known for his role as Wally Cleaver, the elder son of June and Ward, the brother of Theodore Beaver Cleaver, played by Jerry Mathers, in the television sitcom Leave It to Beaver, which ran in prime time from 1957 to 1963. He is also an accomplished sculptor as well. It is an absolute thrill to welcome the second half of Wally and Beaver, Tony Dow, to Sports Talk New York. Welcome, Tony.
Hey, thank you. How you doing?
Listen, I couldn't be doing any better. To have the two of you on our show is just, it doesn't get better from me. People might not know this, and it's interesting because we are a sports program, but you were a pretty good athlete prior to Leave It to Beaver, as you were a swimmer, and as we mentioned in the open, you were a junior diving champion, held a national record at the age of 9. I'm sure some of that athleticism comes from your mom, who was a stunt woman in early westerns and Clara Bow's movie Double in Hollywood. And you really weren't looking into getting into acting. So tell us how you end up being Wally Cleaver for 234 episodes in Leave It to Beaver.
Well, it was really, you're right, it was an accident. I used to work out at the Hollywood Athletic Club, diving. And the lifeguard there was a guy named Bill Bryant, who was also an actor, and he came to my mom one day and he said, "Hey, I'm up for this series of this father and son. You think, Tony, go to the studio with me?" So Mom said to put on my blue suit, and I did. And he and I went down to the studio, and oddly enough, I got the part. I'd never acted. I didn't know anything about it. It was the first time I'd ever been near a studio, I think. and unfortunately he did not. And so there were 2 pilots that we did. It was really a great show. It was really an advanced show. It dealt with breaking the quota of whaling. Japan, getting too many whales. So we were out on a clipper ship, and the father was a photographer, and of course the kid always figured out a way to go along with him. And then the other one had to do with a tank that was dropped in the ocean off the shore, and it seemed to be leaking. So somebody had dropped, some toxins off San Pedro or wherever. And so I thought those were pretty progressive shows.
Yeah, 50s for sure. Wow, that's unbelievable. So you mentioned that you really didn't have acting experience. What was it like showing up that first day on set, where everyone, including a very young Jerry Mathers, had movies under his belt and acted with Bob Hope in the Hitchcock movie?
Yeah, well, he was an old pro, and he was really amazing. I mean, he had the ability to read every line perfectly, and he was just cuter than hell. And I don't remember if I was afraid or scared, or I don't think I was any of those things. I think I was just curious and a little bit apprehensive, I'm sure. But they put a person of dialogue coach type person with me, and she spent the first, I would say, I don't know, maybe 6, 8, 10 shows, and helped me sort of move into being able to actually say a line properly. So
really,
first show.
That's interesting, because you watch the shows today, and you and Jerry have amazing chemistry. And what I found fascinating about it, and I could be wrong, I believe you're the youngest in your family. Jerry was the oldest in his. Yet you both seem so comfortable with the reverse roles in the series. So how much did you pull on your family dynamic of your older brother to play Beaver's older brother?
None. Actually, he was too much older. He was like 14 years, and at that time he was, I guess he graduated from UCLA, and he was in the Army, an officer, and then he was working at systems development. So anyway, we didn't spend a lot of time together. The only time I spent with him was at the beach playing volleyball. He was a really good beach volleyball player, and that was the time when beach volleyball was just sort of beginning. And so I used to stand at the end of the courts and get the balls that got by him. So, and then I started playing. So that actually was my sport, although I did have national records in 2 or 3 different swimming strokes, like breaststroke and freestyle, and I held a national record for the 100-yard medley. I mean, the 100-yard, medley, individual medley. So, I was very comfortable in the water. But once I started playing volleyball, that was it. I loved it. It was great. I played in about 4 national open tournaments. So, even though I'm a short guy, big problem, especially these days. You got to be 6'4" in order to even get on the court.
Right. So, during this pandemic, part of my daily routine has been to start the day at 8 a.m. with 2 episodes of Leave It to Beaver on MeTV. And while I was always a big fan of the show, I now find something different every time I watch it. And, what I find amazing, especially now, since you mentioned that you really didn't have acting, experience prior to this, that I find your performances are really so nuanced and so textured, and I'm not sure that the show works without you as Wally. I can't envision another Wally. I read somewhere that while the show was on, you weren't allowed to watch it, and that you really haven't seen many of the episodes to this day. So why is that?
Well, the producers, who incidentally were the creators and writers, and the stuff you're talking about, all of the ability for Jerry and I to seem like we were real brothers was really because of the producers. They were just fantastic writers. Anyway, so what was the last question?
The question is that you really, during the show, it was on, you didn't get to watch it.
Yeah, they said, they told my folks, he didn't, don't have him watch the show. It'd be better if he didn't, because we don't want him to think they're funny, or we don't want them to get big heads about what's going on. And so that was the case. They didn't do any press or anything. There was tons of people who wanted to do interviews and photograph things and whatnot. And they really actually said that they wouldn't allow that for the first 2 or 3 years. And instead, we would take one trip to New York. We would sit up in the Waldorf Astoria, and they would parade all of these journalists through, and we'd talk to them for 15 minutes, spend the whole day doing that, a couple days. And that's how they kind of kept us away from the hoopla and all the, they just thought we'd be more natural. And I guess it worked out that way.
You mentioned your athletic ability, and I read somewhere that on set you guys got to meet a lot of amazing people, and sports related. You actually had a football catch with Rock Hudson, and you broke someone's windshield with a baseball. Who was that, and how did that happen?
Steve McQueen. It was a Jaguar. It was a racing car, and somebody obviously was a better hitter than any of us thought. I think it was me, actually, and. Yeah, it was a softball. I don't know what the heck happened. Must have been a hard one. And it landed on his windshield, shattered it. And, of course, as kids do, we ran like hell to get out of there. And then we realized, we really should do something about that. So we went back and we put a note on his windshield saying that who we were and that we were playing baseball, and somebody hit the ball and broke his windshield. And so he came over to our set, and he said, well, thanks for the note. I really appreciate it. It's no big deal. I'll just get another windshield. So that was we had exchanges with a number of people like that, like Robert Mitchum and, as you said, Rock Hudson. And I guess I could go on, especially television, Ward Bond and Bobby Fuller and Dale Robertson, the people of the day that starred in the shows that Universal was making.
And then even the people that appeared in the show. I mean, I know where you got to go to one of your friends who was married and saw firsthand what young married life was, and that person was Ryan O'Neal.
That was one of his first jobs. Yeah, the way that happened, I was walking in to see the producers about something. I don't know what it was. And Ryan came out of the door, and I had just met him through a family friend of ours had a beautiful daughter, and she was going out with Ryan. So at a party once at our house, she brought him to the party and said, he's my friend and he's an actor, et cetera, et cetera. So when he came out of the thing, I said, hey, man, what's going on? What are you doing? And he said, oh, well, I was just up for a part in your show. I think it was really early on in his career. I mean, it may have been one of the first things he ever did. And I said, oh, yeah? Well, let me see if I can put in a good word. So I went in and talked to the guys, and I said, hey, how did Ryan do? Was he good? And he said, yeah, he was good. And I said, well, what are the chances? Because he's a friend of mine, and it'd be great if he could do it. And so they gave him the part.
Yes.
So that's
wild. I saw that episode the other day, and I'm looking, I go, that's Ryan O'Neal, which I never realized the first time. So we mentioned the chemistry that you had with Jerry, but when you watch the show, you really get the feeling that you're looking in on the entire Cleaver family and their friends, and you're just as comfortable outside of the house with Frank Bank, Lumpy, and Ken Osmond, Eddie Haskell. What was the relationship with the rest of the cast? Even when you're speaking to Whitey, or Gilbert or Larry Mondello, it also just seems so natural. What was the relationship with everyone on the set?
Well, I think that shows up through the writing. I honest to God do. I mean, I think that the writers were so good at writing dialogue that appeared very natural and very real. And of course, they cast people that weren't, actors or precocious sort of acting kids. So we had a good relationship. I had a lot of fun with Larry Mondello. He was a cool kid. I didn't have much of a relationship with Whitey, and a little bit with Gilbert, but Ken Osmond and Frank Bank, they were both characters, and we'd go out to lunch at Bob's Big Boy, and it was when we took Jerry with him, we'd always, when a bunch of girls would go by in a car, we'd always tell them, "Get down, get down," which was one of the things that they used in the show, I think.
That's funny.
Yeah, Frank. Frank was. He was just kind of the way he was in the show. He's just kind of a goofy guy, And I don't know if anybody's ever read his book, but it's pretty funny. It talks about all the conquests he's had with women, and it couldn't be farther from the truth. I mean, I'm sure he did fine, and he had all these great cars. That's one of the things he did have. He had, 57 Chevy that was all, rebushed chrome wheels and all that kind of crap. And he always had a new car. He had a DeLorean when they came out.
Wow.
So he was kind of on the cutting edge in terms of cars, and that may have helped him with the girls. I'm not sure. It never seemed to help me.
Yeah, I don't think the nickname Lumpy did, but that's for sure. But so,
on his license plate on all of his cars, it says "I'm Lumpy."
Wow.
So he was definitely one of the characters in the part. And when we did the new series, we did it at Universal and over here in Hollywood or North Hollywood, and we took it back to the Universal Studios theme park in Orlando, Florida, before they ever opened, and we were the first television show that ever shot there, and it was funny because he always got left out. Frank did. They'd have a plaque that would say, welcome to the, Universal Studios, and then they'd have everybody's name. Didn't have his name. Whenever they get an award, have everybody's name. Didn't have his name. It was funny. So, and he was afraid to fly. So he would drive when he had a part, and the producers were real good at doing this. They would group of 3 episodes or something together. But he would drive back. He'd drive all the way back to Florida and all the way back here just to be on the show, which, it was a big part of his life. And of course, Kenny, I mean, he's one of the greatest characters ever on television, up there along with the Fonz and Archie Bunker. And, I mean, I think he was just terrific. I've watched some things recently, YouTube things or something. Somebody was watching him, and I, look in. And he was fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just saw a clip of the roller coaster show, which I didn't even remember, but it's where, I don't know, some kid and Jerry and I, and then Frank and Lumpy were in the back seat, and of course, Eddie and Lumpy were in the back seat, and Eddie, of course, was a big shot. He was, and Jerry Beaver was scared. He didn't know what to do. And actually, Lumpy was a little apprehensive. So we get on the thing, and there's all this stuff, all these turns and whatnot, and everybody's having a great time. And Beaver loves it, and Lumpy's having fun. And after about halfway through the ride, Eddie starts to get scared. he clams on to Lumpy, and he just won't let go. And it was just a funny episode that I'd never seen. I've never seen that episode, so it was fun to see that clip because it was a really good clip.
Yeah, it's the one where the Beaver finally gets to go with the big kids, and he's scared, and he goes to see Gus the fireman, who tells him about how he overcame his fears. It's also one of those great episodes. So you mentioned Ken Osmond, and one of the things when you watch it now, which you probably didn't realize as much, especially now if you watch, we sort of everything now is binge watch. So when you watch them one episode after the other, I never realized how many different nicknames he gave you. And I was wondering if those nicknames were all scripted, or at any time did he ad-lib those? Because there were just so many of them. I couldn't imagine that every single one of these names were. I know that the most frequent was Sam, but there were just so many of them. Did he ad-lib any of those? And how did you not crack up at some of them?
Well, we did. We had a great fun on the show, and we did crack ourselves up. And being kids, it was hard to get us back in shape to do the scenes. But Clyde was one of them. Sam, and the Beaver was what the heck was he? The shrimp or I don't know what he was. But anyway, Eddie had a bunch of different names. I'm not sure if Kenny came up with them. He could have. I don't recall him ad-libbing on a scene. Most of the stuff was really scripted, and we didn't do any ad-libbing actually.
So looking back at the body of work you did on both Leave It to Beaver shows and the place it holds in history of television and the impact it's had on multiple generations, what comes to your mind being part of all of it?
Well, yeah, it's a funny progression because after I got off the show, the first show, I was an actor. I mean, that's what I did, but I had trouble because, I was sort of typecast. And I didn't get any roles that were really juicy. I always got the role of the good guy, or the normal guy, or the brainy guy, or whatever. And so it kind of pissed me off. I mean, I was like, God, it'd be great if I could just get a part. And I did finally. I got a great part. It was a 2-part show on Dr. Kildare and 11th Hour, and it was really a good show. But I never got a chance to really do a lot of acting. But actually, that was probably lucky because I probably wasn't that great an actor. I was very good at being natural, and that's what I tried to be. My heroes were James Dean and Montgomery Clift and those guys. So once I became aware of what was going on, I tried to be as natural as I possibly could, and in my directing career, I tried to be I was pretty good with kids, but I tried to keep everything very natural, and so it's that's just kind of a thing I'm pretty good at. But anyway, I didn't get very far. Well, a lot of things got in the way of my acting career. But then I became aware of the show, and I thought, well, shoot, it's a pretty good show, And we go on vacation, like we went to Cancun one time, and we stayed one night in a hotel before we went off on exploration. And we walk in, and the guy turns on the TV, and there it is. There's June Cleaver speaking Mexican, speaking Spanish. So it's. I definitely knew that this was being seen by a lot of people in a lot of countries. And then, now, I mean, I've always had this attitude of, nobody really cares. But if you look at the number of fan club things that are on the internet, on Facebook or whatever, and that I have a Facebook that's taken care of by a friend of mine, takes care of the technical part of it. Anyway, we'll post something really kind of fun or interesting. Within 6 hours, there's 40,000 people hitting it. So I guess there's still a lot of people that remember the show, and if they don't remember it, they can watch it twice on MeTV every morning. So. I just think it was terrific writing. There was sort of a, what am I trying to say? Anyway, it always said something about kids versus kids, or kids versus parents. Parents were always they were the adults or they were the parents in the group, and Wally was sort of the adult person, and Beaver, of course, was a child, and. It made a lot of comments about life, and I think it taught people a lot of stuff. I think that's why it remained so popular with people in my age group, and I guess in your age group you were watching residuals, and the same thing was true. Each show had a message, and they were very subtle.
Right.
But a lot of people walked away from the show thinking, "Wow, it's a really." It was an important part of my childhood. I mean, it was fantastic. Or a father will say, that it's been really helpful in my having my kids grow up and being a father. That show had a lot of great messages.
Tremendous messages. We got about 35 seconds before we have to go to break. You have a second career as a sculptor, creating abstract bronze sculptures. How did that come about, and where can people find out about your great artwork?
Well, I have a website, Tony Dow Sculpture. Also, the Bilotta Gallery in Fort Lauderdale handles my stuff, and you can see my stuff there, BILOTTA, and but it's on my website.
We'll post.
How did I get into it? I had always planned to since I was a kid.
It's great stuff. It's beautiful stuff. I urge people to go and take a look at it. Tony, thanks so much for your time tonight. More importantly, thanks for being America's big brother.
Okay, well, thank you. I do appreciate that.
You got it. Tony Dow, Wally Cleaver. We'll be back with the NFL report right after this message.
The Phoenix Tube Company Incorporated is among the country's leading manufacturers of structural ornamental stainless steel tubing, rectangles, squares, and processed flat bars. The company takes pride in its everyday commitment to quality and customer service. The philosophy of the company has been and continues to be to support the growth of the stainless tube market through distribution and service centers throughout the country. Ornamental and structural stainless steel tubing is used for a wide variety of aesthetic and mechanical products where superior finish and corrosion resistance are required. Some products manufactured include tubing for mirror bracket arms, boat rails and ladders, washroom grab bars, swimming pool rail products, medical equipment, automotive step bars and trimming, as well as structural framing for food processing equipment. For a quote or for more information on how the Phoenix Tube Company can meet your ornamental and structural stainless steel tubing needs, visit them on the web at phoenixtube.com or call them toll-free at 1-800-526-2124.
And welcome back to 540 AM Sports Talk New York. Mark Rosen, Ryan Sherman, Mike Apiece with you this Sunday evening. It's time now for the NFL Report with Jay Retcher, sponsored by Just Escape LI. They're going to be opening up soon, so check them out at justscapeli.com. How you doing, Jay?
I'm good, fellas. How y'all doing?
Pretty good. All right, so you know what? We got some players, the NFLPA executive director isn't really happy to see the NFL players continue to work out despite the union advisory sent out to them last week saying they should stop it. What do you think's going on here? Especially, you got Mr. Brady playing out there.
Yeah, it's very weird. I mean, down here in Tampa, it's really split down the middle. Half of the people are looking at it like, really, with all the cases going up seemingly on a daily basis. Tom Brady's out there playing football. The other half is like, well, hey, he's out there and he's got some of the young guys with him and he's trying to, put work in and on his own time. So it's really kind of split down here. But yeah, DeMar Smith is not happy with what just came out, and especially with all the news with the cases rising on a daily basis here in the Florida area. You've seen already members for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and then spring training with the Blue Jays and Dunedin, as well as the Phillies in Clearwater. You've seen a lot of cases down here with professional athletes, and there's still a lot of questions up in the air as far as Orlando goes with the NBA. Is that whole thing's going to go on as planned? But yeah, the whole Tom Brady thing is just, man, it's really split down the middle, and it's you would think that, hey, getting out there early would be a good thing, getting used to his new teammates, but not in the world that we're living in right now.
Well, speaking of Tom Brady and his former team, looks like they've got a replacement. This just happened while we were on the air. The New England Patriots have signed a fairly good quarterback named Cam Newton. So, it's going to be interesting to see what Cam Newton now does with the Patriots.
I talked to Cam Newton earlier today and told him to not break the news until your show came on today. So, no, but I think this is the deal that made sense all along to me. You can't possibly tell me with the kind of defense that the New England Patriots have with a slew of good running backs that they were going to go into the season with Jarrett Stidham. I wasn't buying it at all. I was just waiting for something to happen. I think Cam Newton is the perfect guy. He's 31. He's determined and he's motivated. I know he's coming off the Litzfrank injury and the shoulder injury, but listen, guys, you guys know as well as I do, when you have a former MVP in any sport and he's still got juice left in the tank, if you give him an opportunity to win and succeed and have a good support system around him, that's a dangerous dude to deal with. So keep an eye out. That defense is still really good. Remember Sam Darnold was seeing ghosts last year on that Monday night game. I think New England, this puts them right atop the AFC East. And I think Cam Newton he's going to be a force to be reckoned with in New England.
Absolutely. All right, Jay, we appreciate Jay Retcher here with the Just Escape LI NFL report. That about wraps it up. If you did miss any part of it, the full video will be up on sportstalknylive.com. The podcast of both Jerry Mathers and Tony Dow will also be up on the website in a day or two. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll see everyone next week, and have a good one. Be safe, be healthy, be strong, everyone. We'll see everyone next week.
The views, opinions, and statements expressed